Satnam, welcome to episode 19 of the Heart of the Shaman podcast. I am really excited about today's episode. We're going to be connecting with spirit and channeling some messages, seeing what comes through, what is here for the collective today. And I wanted to start with some drumming and some tuning in. So if you're listening in and you're able to, just go ahead and take a moment to gently close your eyes. Connect with your breath, inhaling, allowing that inhale to reach down deep, maybe even as far as the tailbone. So inhaling beyond the lower belly, exhaling out the mouth. Just taking this opportunity to connect with your physical body, to tune inward, to slow everything down. And allow a couple of your exhales to drop you into your heart space. So maybe allowing some of that energy that's in the space of the mind on your exhale to shift, to move into the center of the chest, the energetic heart space. And just tuning into the rhythm. Allowing your inhales to expand in the body. Making some noise on the exhale. Maybe bringing some awareness to what's been surfaced for you lately. There might be some things that you're wanting clarity on, or maybe you are simply curious about, or even themes or cycles that you've noticed. So just open to what comes up here. When you feel ready, eventually blinking your eyes open, reconnecting with the body, bringing in some movement. And so this episode has been a long time coming, offering some podcast episodes with just this channeled information and energy from spirit and allowing it to come through. That has come through in previous podcasts, but we're just going to do it in a little bit of a different way. Something that I really recognized and sort of anchored in a deeper way at the beginning of this year is there are so many themes that come throughout the course of a month when I'm working with clients, where there is this parallel between multiple clients and even my own personal life, certainly, where it's clear that some of these themes and messages are coming up for the collective, for a wider audience. And it just felt like, wouldn't it be great, cool, fun to be able to bring some of that through every month in a episode and just really tune into not just what is current, but again, offering some clarity and some healing energy for whoever is connected with these messages and tuning in here. So welcome. It feels also significant that this is episode 19, the 9 and the 1 combining to bring us to the beginning of a new cycle. There's a lot of information that's been floating around, right, about this being a 1 year in a 9-year cycle in numerology, and we've got that fire horse energy in Chinese astrology. So there's a lot of new beginning energy for 2026 that we are working with and that we're allowing into our life experience. I know one thing that I can say from my own experience is in recent years, there have been times where I've tuned into the energies and albeit not trying to do this, I've had a bit of an expectation around maybe the direction the energy was going to go or possibilities of how things were going to unfold throughout the course of the year, and then been surprised when things moved in a different direction, or certainly it wasn't coming through the way that I had either expected or, maybe had a pulse on. So I think that going a little bit deeper and getting clarity at different times can be really impactful. And there's also a space where it allows us to just release, to just be in a lighter space and not feel like we're trying to control anything or to have certain outcomes in our life. Certainly we have visions, right? We can envision and vision and move towards our goals, but that is a different energy. It has a different quality than when we're trying to control things and we feel like we need things to happen in a certain way. We've all had the experience of that being true, just really wanting a certain outcome. And there is a really, I'm going to say, magical space that we can move into when we're able to just surrender that control and to come into the flow of it's really like what life has in store for us, and be open to that, be open to divine timing, all of these good things. So I wanted to start with a couple of themes and then just tune in and see if there's any additional information that comes through. January and February, there were several strong themes, one being authentic self and authenticity. And so it was really coming through in a way where people have been questioning what is authentic for them and maybe reassessing if there have been any changes with that, with what is authentic and true. And another angle of this is sometimes we may not know. So especially this is common for women, right? But we can focus our energies on others and outward. And as a result of doing this, we oftentimes are not as aware of who we are, what we want, where our own energy is at, just based on that extra focus on someone else, something else. And so the authentic self can be a little fuzzy unless we make this space to really tune in and get clear. So why is authenticity important? One of the things that's been coming up is really living our life in a way that is authentic to us, which is very personal. It can mean different things, right, to different people. It's the journey of the soul is how it's coming through. So that's going to look however it's going to look for each individual. But we can either be in alignment with the journey of our soul, or we can be out of alignment and we can be in resistance to this. So if we're in resistance to that authenticity, it just creates a lot more tension. It creates a lot more conflict. It creates a lot more of truly feeling like maybe our life is not our own, or there's other things that are controlling our life, these sort of energies. So I'm just going to take a moment to connect with my guides and see if there's any additional information on living authentically and the authentic self. And so what's coming through is this is an incredibly empowered place to live from. It's courageous as well. And it's also a discovery. So just as I was touching on, there can be certain things that maybe have inhibited us from fully connecting with what is true and authentic for us as individuals. And when we are in alignment with this, there may be changes that we are called to make that could be hard, that could require courage, or could potentially feel like, wow, this is such a big shift. It's such a pivot from where my life is now. And that can bring up some of the unknown, some unknown energy around, okay, so if this is my truth, that's going to be maybe a 360 from where I am, or I don't have the information that fills in the gaps, right? How do I get there? Or what does it look like if I take this action step or I take this risk? So interestingly, this is bringing us right into another piece or another angle of this authentic self that has been coming up in the past several months, and it's trust. And so there can be this element of trust of, again, what feels exterior to us, right? Trusting the environment, trusting other individuals, trusting our spirit guides. But then there is also trusting self. And for many of us, this also can be a bit of a learned experience, or maybe there are some tweaks to make in order for that to be more fluid, or for this place of trust to be a place that we're in more often. So, in tuning into that, this larger message in connection to trust and authentic self is really that the trust is crucial and it's a building block. So, being able to follow our own intuition to take the next step based on what that is, even when we don't necessarily know the full picture or where it's all going to lead us, that capacity to trust and to move into that place brings us into more and more of an authentic space. And I'm just getting a message that it can be light and not so serious, which is always an important thing for me to kind of hone in on and remember as well. So, sometimes we can get into the mind and think, okay, well, what if I get it wrong? Or how do I pay attention to intuition? Or, just overcomplicate these things. But simply by having an intention around something, that's powerful. If you are clear on an intention to trust yourself, to trust your intuition, if you're feeling a pull to live in an authentic way and discover what that's going to be for you and what that's going to mean for you, then that's a fundamentally good place to start, to come back to that into maybe even daily, or maybe in your morning practice. Okay, my intention is trust. And, there are different, what I'm getting is, right, there's different ways we can sort of hack our subconscious to rewrite some programming if we have some real blocks to being able to trust ourselves. That is really the place to start, I'll say. And then there is also that aspect of sometimes there's things to release in order to clear the pathway to be able to trust ourselves more. So an important message in connection with this as well is it's all a journey, right? It doesn't have to be a 360 from one day to the next where we're trusting ourselves a little bit and then, somehow there's an urgency and in the next day or two we have this full capacity of trust. That's the space where the message is coming through to be light and not so serious. Just be on the journey, move in the direction of the vision, move in the direction of the energy, and allow that to be a freeing space. Like, that's all you need to be concerned with. So, yeah, this feels like a big one. It's very much connected to this year, 2026. And again, this new energy, however it manifests for all of us, that will be coming into play. There's also a message around sort of like what I was sharing personally around, sometimes we can have expectation. Okay, this is a year to start new things, and then start thinking about, well, what is it that I've been wanting to start? Or, what do I want to manifest? And that's all good, but balancing it with divine timing, with seeing the signs that show up in the universe, with what intuitive information comes forward for you. So in that space, there's this balance of, I'm going to even say, a little bit of surrender. Like my guides are showing me just sort of like a free fall through the air, this very free space of, okay, when, I'm there, I just have this trust and I recognize that all is moving in divine timing and in a divine way. So again, we can have a vision, but we have this like vast flexibility in this space of trust of all of the details and how things show up, and just really knowing that that is going to be exactly how it's meant to be. And a caveat to that is, it doesn't mean that it'll be easy or there won't be some components of growth, suffering, challenge. right? We all know that these aspects are a part of our human experience, but it's different to experience something that is challenging or painful and to have an awareness of the sort of bird's eye view, the bigger picture of our life and the possibilities, than to experience it in a way where it feels more all consuming and like it's narrowing our experience and our capacity. And in fact, even if it is experienced like that to some degree initially, again, that's just human. And we'll move into this space that is more expanded around anything that's challenging when we have the capacity to do so. All right, let's see. Another theme that's been coming through, and I've heard this from other mystics and healers as well. And this was another energy that was coming through in January, but also very alive in February, is leadership. And it's really personal leadership. There's a really personal quality to this as well. And so there is a connection here to living authentically, certainly. But what potentially does this personal leadership look like? And I'm just getting lots of images of so many beautiful individual scenarios. My guides are just kind of connecting with the message that it's important to clarify we have certain connotations with leadership in that word, right? Like I'm seeing somebody on a pedestal speaking to like hundreds of people, or there's some power energy that's connected to it. And while it may be that you're communicating with many, many people and you are speaking or connecting from a very empowered place, it doesn't have to look that way. If this is leadership in your own personal life, that could be showing up with your friends or family, or it could be showing up in a way where you are having different boundaries for yourself in your own experience. And there's this aspect of, standing up for yourself and stepping into your power in a new way, speaking in ways that maybe you weren't comfortable speaking in before, or embarking on a project or something similar where perhaps, again, your energy wasn't lined up with this in recent previous times, but now. So they're saying, think about, what is personal to you today? What's been personal to you these past even like couple of weeks or couple of months, whatever really feels like it's at the forefront. This is where that energy is around leadership. And it might be that you're creating more things to put out into the world. And it might be, that you are going to, again, be supporting others in different ways. So it really can look so many different ways. But, think of it as an up-leveling, an upgrade. Again, this is one where courage feels like a really integral part of it, by calling upon an inner courage and even setting an intention to have courage as we meet our day to day and life unfolding. That allows us to be in this space of leadership, which means we really get to experience the new energies that are going to be coming forward and landing this year in a fuller capacity. It's like we are in an open space to allow these energies to flow and to, be open, not closed off. And depending on what is showing up for us, we then can take action around whatever it is. And so as a result of that, we're going to be having new experiences, and we're going to be experiencing things in new ways where we're essentially different versions of ourselves with different perspectives and just a real different sense around the experience. So my guides are also sharing that I'd call them the dream team, by the way. So this has been recently in the past few months. One of them just suggested like, hey, you can come up with something where we're just all a part of the team. And I'm 43, and many of the guides that I'm connected with, many of these spiritual energies, I've been connected with since I'm going to say mid. And so we've been on the journey together for not an insignificant amount of time for this lifetime. And through that, there has been so much guidance, so much light energy that has come forward. And also we've developed a relationship. So it's like, this is a personal group, the dream team coming through. All right. So getting back to the next piece to touch on let's see, personal leadership, living authentically, and they were wanting me to mention cycles, right? So with the leadership piece, this is coming through in a certain way, and you might be noticing things surfacing in your life that you'd experienced in a similar way 7 years ago or 9 years ago. And we always have these cycles through life. And oftentimes it's meant to show us, okay, or a different version of yourself. You're in a different space. So if that is the case, how are you meeting this energy on this part of the spiral versus how you met the energy 7 years ago or 9 years ago or whatever the case may be with this cycle, right? So this is going to be something that probably is relevant for most of you, particularly the 7 and the 9 feel significant. And so those are things to think about. Okay, what was going on for me? What were the themes 7 years ago, 9 years ago? And is this energy coming back? And, how am I different and how am I meeting it? And, what is there to be learned or alchemized as a result? Yeah, that piece is typically very illuminating, and I'll say for myself, yeah, there's always some measure of challenge in it also, because there's a part of us that's like, I've already, I thought I already dealt with this, or I've already been here with this energy. But yeah, there's a different outcome potential, different direction to go in, and there's something relevant about still feeling that, okay, I'm a different version of myself. What is the up level here? What is the potential for that? Okay, so we're going to tune in just for a moment, re-grounding and connecting with the energies. So, depending on how you are listening to this, if you have the opportunity, you can go ahead and close your eyes, drop the shoulder. Oh, oh. Good. Making some noise on your exhales. And we'll also take a moment here to bring in all of the elements. So the way that it's coming is the 5 elements. So wind and water, fire, earth, metal. And there's just some recognition around how all of these elements are also a part of us on a physical level. And they're a part of the earth, and they're a part of the flora and the fauna. So the frequencies of the elements is something that really allows us to be interconnected with the earth and grounded in this lifetime and in this experience. And so on the Heart of the Shaman, the discourse is around modern day shamanism as a lifestyle or healing practices. What does this look like? And part of it is the connection with nature, really allowing this to be healing, grounding, but allowing it to be a relationship that is a two-way street. And by connecting with the elements, we can always be aware of what might be out of balance or what energy we can bring back into balance. So it's interesting that this is coming up, but it's just a very simple way. The way that it's coming up is to give everyone an example of how to balance our bodies on a physical level. So sometimes we feel like we are well anchored in the body, grounded, connected to the earth. Other times we can feel like we're spacey or we're stuck in the mind or we're out of body. This would just be one version of the balance going in one direction or the other direction. And so by calling upon the elements and even asking a question of what element makes sense to bring into our physical experience to create balance, there's always going to be an answer here, right? So if water is what comes up, then how can we allow our emotions to flow, to be at the surface? How can we connect with that aspect of ourselves? It could even be more literal. Are we dehydrated? So it can look a few different ways, but it's going to be clear, okay, there's a way for me to bring the water element in to balance things. I'm thinking for myself, there are certain times where I can have a lot of energy in the mind. and really start to feel the concentration of that energy in my head. There is a like hot or fiery quality to that. And so that would be a perfect opportunity to bring in the water element and to, by connecting with, I'm going to say, the vibration or the frequency of water, to bring some of that energy out of the mind to cool things down and create the balance. So there's really kind of a creative space to move in with this. And it's a simple way to check in, to be able to balance the physical body. And also, yeah, we can ask the question of what element does it make sense to bring into our experience, maybe turning the volume up on or at a higher level now. So we are not just in a place of more balance, but what I'm seeing is really more expanded in a grounded way. So to clarify that, it's like things are just more vibrant. There's a more visceral experience of whatever it is we're experiencing. And so if I tune into that for the collective right now, it's showing that for most people, it's either going to be bringing in an earth energy, bringing in the quality and the frequency of earth, or bringing in the quality and the frequency of fire. And this is just right now, and you could get something different for yourself if you're tuning in. And one of the easiest ways, right, with earth is simply to get your feet on the ground, and especially outside, if you're able to hug a tree, and then in terms of the fire element, lots of ways to do this also. And it can be symbolic in a sense, right? You can light a candle or you can simply call upon the frequency. So I'm receiving a message to share a little bit about how things work on a quantum level with energy, frequencies, vibrations. And so for this piece, what I'll say is it's coming through in terms of homeopathy. And I'm not an expert. I don't want to, go too detailed into what it is and how it works and all of that. But essentially, it's a frequency medicine. It's an energy medicine. The frequency of a certain thing is diluted to a certain degree, and then you bring it into your system to create a balance with, and it depends on what is going on for you, physically or otherwise. And actually, homeopathy can be incredibly complex and also very magical. And I had a friend in New York several years ago who practiced homeopathy. And, if you, let's say you're wanting arnica is probably one of the most common types for like a bruise or something like that. And you go to the store, you can get those little like sugar pellets and those little vials. And then you just take those. And like that is how you're introducing the homeopathic element to whatever it is that you have going on. But, he had said to me, or you could just write it on a piece of paper and you can put it in your pocket or you can put it under your pillow. Or you can really just focus on the intention of whatever it is in your mind. You could write the sort of like prescription, right, of whatever the homeopathy is and just like have that in your inner vision. And so that is a really interesting concept, right? And again, I, not being like an overly science-based person, I'm not going to go into like quantum physics around this, but there is this quantum aspect. And there's this potency to just attuning to the frequency of something or connecting with the frequency of something. And if we can recognize how much potential is there and balance that with trust and our intuition, we are going to have clarity on whatever is going to bring us into a state of physical balance in the moment. But we can also bring these things in bigger questions or to get clarity on the vision and the energy of where we're headed as well. Yeah, so that piece feels really good, really incredible. There's a little message connected to that coming through, and it feels separate but connected at the same time. And my guides are just saying, people really enjoy going on retreats in modern day, and retreats can be a really, really good way to get solo time, to reset, to connect in nature. And if we were to go further back in time, the ways that we did these things might look different, but in modern day, there's a lot in our experience that can distract us from our inner world and even from nature and from connecting with spirit, because there are so many subtle, more quiet energies that are in these spaces. And so it does require being able to feel them or hear them. And when there's a lot of static in our experience and we're just busy and there's a lot that's loud, that's going to be distracting. Finding the retreat space that works for you feels like something that if you have access to that this year, it is going to be very, very balancing. It could just be a simple solo retreat that you do for a couple of days. You might travel and go somewhere totally new. There are probably going to be different reasons different people are needing this experience. But again, it's something that we can create even on a small scale and is good to seed into our timeline throughout the year so that we always have these touchstones to go inward and reconnect with spirit, with nature, with self, all of these subtle energies. And it kind of gives us a little bit of a balance if things do get busy and we don't have the opportunity to be as connected as we would really like to be all of the time. I'll just plug this real quick. I'll be offering a retreat in the mountains of North Carolina in September at the equinox this year. So as of now, that's several months away, but it's going to be a few nights and it's really going to be a deeper experience of reset and rejuvenation. So that is one example of what that might look like. And you can certainly reach out if that resonates with you at any point. Okay, just tuning in. Okay, so there's one more theme to address here. So this is one that I've really, really been loving since even before the beginning of the year. It's loving kindness. And many of you may have tuned into the walk that the monks did from Fort Worth, Texas, all the way to Washington, D.C. I think that started potentially back in October or November. And so this was a walk for peace. And then I tuned into some of their live messages that they offered along the way. And it was all connected to peace, to loving kindness, and much of what the monks would answer when people had questions. There were Q&As at different points. They would say, it comes back to mindfulness. And so this feels in some ways very simple, right? If we are emotional about something or triggered about something or not fully present and grounded in the moment, we're not necessarily going to be able to be in like a great expanded place of loving kindness. But if we're able to, even if we need to impart a couple of tools to focus on the breath, to slow down in a moment, then we can really connect with that energy. And for me, I'll just say, and this is something that we'll continue to do as an exercise in future podcasts, but there is a simple way of just inhaling into the space of the head, exhaling, bringing your consciousness and your energy into the center of the chest and starting to have your consciousness and your awareness settle into the space of the heart. And what's interesting is, right, there's just times that we're already there or we're naturally in the heart space. But then there are times where it does feel like we are more distracted or contracted in some way, and we've just been oriented in a different way. And it makes sense to take a couple of breaths and really ground our energy into the space of the heart. Once you're there, you are in a space of loving kindness. Even if there is something that you need clarity on that has been really unclear or that has been bringing up different energies of resistance for you, the truth comes through from the space of the heart in a different way, a way that's very connected to your knowing and your authenticity. So in many ways, touching on loving kindness as a theme that's been coming up in so many dynamic ways brings us full circle, because once we're in the heart space, this is our truth, this is our authenticity. And then we just know. We just know the answer. And the answer in the space of the heart doesn't quite come in the same way, right, as in the space of the mind. And not that those are the only options, but that's something we can get into in another time. It's not always so detailed, but it is very grounded and all encompassing, and it has a loving quality. So you always know if what is coming forward is coming from the space of the heart because there is no judgment. You're in a space of loving kindness. When you get out of the heart space, maybe you do have a little bit of judgment around whatever the thing might be. But once you're in that space, there's this capacity to know and to connect with an answer, with insight, with intuition. And there's no judging. There is this bigger awareness that we all deserve loving kindness, that we all dwell in this place at the level of our soul, is the way that it's coming. And I'll just say that this walk with the monks, another reason that it felt so significant to me and so touching over the past few months is we have very loud social media and polarizing messages that come through, and we have a lot of information that comes through to us from a variety of different sources. And so our nervous system is subject to a lot more information than maybe makes sense for us as humans at any given point. And it's not even really about making that good or bad. That's just where we're at in society. But oftentimes the lens is skewed and it's more negative, and it makes us feel like there are more things going on that are negative than positive. And again, even that, as I'm saying that, it's like there's this quality of it's a little too polarizing. If we move into the space of the heart, we can have a recognition of what is true, what is possible. There's a knowing that so much is evolving in a good way. It doesn't discount what is, scary or what has been tragic or, anything that has a heavier energy. But again, we get into that broader space of knowing, sort of like that bird's eye view, bigger picture of how things are unfolding. And that's also a space of trust. There's just a trust there. Like in your body, you can take a sigh, you can exhale to some degree and really feel like things are okay without having any idea of outcomes or, a full picture, certainly of a direction that we're headed. And so I feel I got off on a slight tangent there, but I was just wanting to share that this walk for peace the monks reached so many people. And it was an antidote to this polarizing energy because the messages are so universal, and how to get to this space of loving kindness, the mindfulness, the being present is also so universal. So they just resonated with so many different people from so many different walks of life. And, we all saw how many people showed up to support them throughout the various locations they were in, right? And so that feels like the way it's coming is sort of like an initiation of more examples of loving kindness on that scale to come in this next whole 9-year cycle. And all of us, this message is coming through very strong. The dream team is saying all of us, through our personal leadership, are going to play a part in these really high or strong frequencies of loving kindness being anchored and grounded on the earth in many different ways. And so there are so many beautiful, talented, different people in this world that there are going to be creative and artistic ways this comes through, and practical ways and inventions. But ultimately it's the loving kindness. It's the love for humanity. It's the experiences that we share. It's the space of the heart that we all can go to that is going to continue to bring us together. And we are really going to see in this next chapter, not just so many positive examples of that, but we're all going to be able to have a personal experience of how we go on the ride with it. What do we offer? What do we offer in this? Recently, we celebrated Valentine's Day. There's just a couple more messages coming through, and then we're going to close. And, you know, Valentine's Day has kind of like a murky, unclear origin. And originally, it seems that there was some pagan connection to fertility. And then there's been different Saint Valentines who may have been associated with the day, but it's a celebration of love, right? And you know, I feel like there's always some grumbling about it, like it's too commercial or there's too much focus on romantic love. But I feel like I challenge that because it's all about your perspective, right? And it's a holiday that I really appreciate because I feel like what is better to celebrate, you know? And it can come through like myself on a personal level, I'll just say, I'm not like a dramatic gesture person or someone who is typically in my inner vision, I'm just seeing somebody like graffitiing a wall or you know, whatever. And it's interesting because the colors behind me are sort of reminiscent of that. So perhaps this is something that is shifting in the coming months. Feel these energies very deeply, but tend to express things in a pretty, I don't know, like grounded, balanced way. And this is just sharing a little personal tidbit. It's not like a right or wrong thing or anything by any means. Yeah, with Valentine's Day, I feel like there are so many positive, good, different ways to express love, to celebrate love. And the holiday, right, is just an example. The sort of joy of that is, yeah, this is a lifelong practice, bringing us back to the loving kindness. How can we express that on a day-to-day basis? And also that it doesn't have to look a certain way. You know, if you're feeling more solitary or inward and you're praying or you're going into a mindful space, or, you know, you have well wishes for a person or two on any given day. And then maybe there's another day where you're much more out in the world and you're much more connected with what is going on in the collective. It's all fluid. You know, you may be out in nature one day. And again, it could feel, or to others, like that is a solitary day or experience. But your experience could be so multifaceted with your connection to the flora and the fauna and everything that may come through in this loving kindness energy. So I am recording this on February 27th. So we've got like one more day left of February. And a friend of mine said the other day that we've had this like really nice long runway to sort of get our momentum for this next chapter. And it's not even, we're not at the end of the runway yet. So I invite all of you to just allow that to unfold, to take whatever space that you need to take. So feel okay if you're not clear on what new things you're going to be doing or experiencing, or on some of the shifts that are coming through for you. Just being in a present space really is enough. I'm just connecting once more with the dream team and just really having some awareness of an energy healing that is happening for everyone. So thank you so much to everyone who has joined in, who's shared in this message, who's shared in the podcast, who's shared your energy in any capacity. Part of what is coming through is really this knowing that these are healing frequencies. And so anytime we tune in together, we are not just balancing ourselves, but we are dwelling in a healing energy that has gifts for everyone. And sometimes that comes physically, and sometimes that comes as insight. It really can look a lot of different ways. The dream team is just saying, you know, if you're connected to your own intuition, you are going to know what to tune into and to know how to participate in your life. So that turns out to be the closing statement for today. And it could be a question for you. How am I going to participate in my life in this cycle? Is there anything that's going to be changing about my participation? What feels authentic and true for me in terms of how I do participate? And allowing that balance of the feminine and the masculine, right? For that Chinese astrology, the fire horse, there's this movement, this passion, this creativity, this boldness, but there's also the feminine side, which is grounded and intuitive just so highly. intuitive and also very, very present, sensitive. So we can honor all of it and just notice what is going to be balanced for us from one moment to the next. So again, connecting to as it's coming is just what is here for me. So if you have an opportunity now to drop into your heart space and ask this, then go for it. It might be something that you come back to later or this evening or tomorrow morning where you can really tune in. What is here for me? And just see what comes up. I'd love to hear some of your comments. I'd love to hear about how you enjoyed this transmission. If you have questions, there's already several other themes that have been coming through in the past couple of weeks. So I'm excited to bring that information forward and to just connect with you all in the coming weeks and to have this be fun and light. And so taking a couple of deep breaths. And until we connect again, thanking